Welcome back to the living world of darkness. Today, in the rage across the New York, one soul, brightly red-haired and sitting comfortably at the bottom of a tree, her usual little spot by the lake. A blanket is on the ground, pink in color. She sits there, her bag open, and an assortment of different little woodland collections that she's found, idly mixing them together, weaving, so to say, a bunch of vines with feathers, with pine cones, with little things she has found or had kin fetch for her. One, Helena Richards, humming to herself. See, that was quite tame.
Imagining her humming when you're talking in your narrative voice. It's pretty entertaining.
Yes. Of course. I can narrate like this for hours.
I believe you. Thankfully, you shall not have to, as 10 Point will make a fairly prompt, at least, relevant to the beginning of the scene, appearance. Probably because, well, she has seen Helena here a number of times, or, whatever the reason. So for whatever rhyme or reason there may be, there's a 10 Point. She is cropping up. She is trotting along through the, either, well, frosty or... We're going to go with frosty. Layer of dead leaves and whatnot. Crunching along.
There is a frost on the ground on this early morning.
Yes. And so she's going to tromp on by, or, well, on vaguely in that direction. And we'll take pause. We'll glance down. Because this is relevant to her interests.
Oh, it is.
She also jingles.
She jingles? Wow.
Makes it a lot easier to identify on the approach.
I'm going to say, even when you come in, like, that's 10 Points quite far away, jingling away. I don't know how good her eyesight is, but from a distance, you can just see Helena's, that's my accent coming in, Helena's ears prick up. She doesn't stop, but they prick up as she approaches.
It's a pretty familiar gesture to the 10 Point, as most people respond to the jingle jangle.
This is extra far away because I keep hearing ha 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 ha.
Haha, it's probably further than she can probably hear further than 10 Point can see, so
yeah, exactly. Then eventually when 10 Point just kind of comes around off to the side, I guess, a little bit, she just flops over. Just like she's sat down cross-legged and she just rolls over to the side and looks up.
Flump. There will be a wry little smile, and 10 Point will, if there is a clear bit of blanket, pull up some blanket and gesture her up pretty quick-like.
There is always blanket.
Always.
Always. Don't ask.
She pulls up a corner of blanket and gestures Helena back up off the ground.
She sits up, smiles brightly. Morning.
Morning. Early morning. Glances up the sky.
It's still morning.
Sure enough. What are you working on?
She kind of just holds up this woven little thing. It's woven out of, I can't remember the actual word, so I'm just going to say dried vines, I guess. So I know what I mean.
I'm assuming you mean like reeds?
Sure, why not? That sounds better. Stuff and things. But anyway, she holds it up. Albeit it doesn't look very good. It looks like a squircle.
A squircle.
A squircle.
Oh no.
It's about 3/4 of a squircle.
Specifically 3/4.
Yep.
Oh no.
She hasn't finished it yet.
Is it like a flat shape or is she
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. Imagine like a wreath without all the holly on it, essentially.
oh okay. Alright.
So, but squircular.
It's scorculate. You know what? Baby steps.
Exactly. She has no craft, all right? So it's going to be shit.
Aww.
So she just kind of holds this up and smiles, looking through it.
10 Point cannot help but smile back because she's fucking adorable. And look what she did. She's so good at this. We should put this on the fridge. Like, she can't help it.
It's so shit. Let's put it on the fridge. Yay.
You joke, but sooner or later she's gonna make a thing and 10 Point's putting it on the fridge. I'm not sure what it'll be, but she's doing it.
It's fucking brilliant.
So yeah, she'll nod approval. Look take a moment to like poke through looking at the various things she's got laid out to weave into this. In particular chiminage, or are you just having fun?
Practicing.
And she just kind of nods.
So, I'm eventually gonna do more shrines, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want them to look bad. So if I can already do things to things and stuff, I want it to look good.
She nods along. There are some spirits that will appreciate the thought and the effort more, but it never hurts to have them look good too.
Oh yeah. Plus, I get bored a lot. I
It's
don't want
also
to.
good to have ways to fill the time.
I can't exactly play my guitar in the middle of where all the cubs are sleeping.
She offers a shrug. She's had things thrown at her when she started establishing this whole Twilight song nonsense. Doesn't seem to necessarily occur to her.
So this is a more productive, quiet way of keeping myself entertained.
I do find making things to be very satisfying, and yeah, a good way to fill time. Mariah keeps looking at me sideways, because even when we are home and resting, I'm making things.
That's a good thing, though, right?
She kind of knits her
I'm
brow as though puzzled by any sentiment to the contrary. It is good. He tells me to relax, and I'm not sure how else to. Just sitting and not doing anything seems strange.
Yeah, I can't do that. I like to keep busy.
She nods agreement. Pretty rapid like. It's not one
Uh,
thing, it's another.
yeah. She just kind of puts the squircle down. I Oh, oh, oh,
What?
oh,
Yes?
oh. I, I had some things I need to ask you anyway.
Ask away.
She no scrunched of a face. Clearly, I mean, 10 Points been around Helen enough before. You can guess what she's doing,
Yep.
thinking hard as cogs are turning, and she finally, after like a couple minutes or so, comes back. So I know we've talked about it before, but I've had a conversation with Bites the Week, and I wanted to know more about talons.
Yeah, initially there's kind of a blank. When she finally gets the word out, there's a nod. Well, before we get too far, did you succeed in learning the Breath of Gaia? Making a habit of it?
Yeah, I
Good.
think.
Then we shall start anew. Part of the trick of making talons is either making or procuring the item itself. And one must consider when you are making or procuring these things that they will be a home, even if it's a temporary one, for whatever resides in it. And she again plucks out one of the little Gaia's breaths to use as an example. Considering what you mean to bind to make the talon, you should house them accordingly. The water spirits, the jar and a little bit of water, appeals to them more, well, than other potential methods. I have heard of fire spirits being bound into matchboxes. I have heard of all manner of spirits. I bind spirits into my arrows. Simply depends on what you mean to create. So the first step, and she will pat the squircle. God bless the little squircle, it tries so hard. She's not sure if it's trying to be a square or a circle. It's anyone's guess, really, but it's trying.
It's trying.
So the first step is in making the item. But the second, well, the second is determining the spirit, both to suit the item that you have and to suit the purpose that you need it to serve. But third is learning the right of binding, so that once you've made an agreement, you can bind them into the item. And I would be happy to teach this to you. I'll even teach you to make the Gaia's breaths as well, so that you have something to start with.
I'd love to.
And she will, of all things, because it's an absurd thing to carry around in a fucking swag, but she will actually produce something along the lines of like a pound of clay out of the bag. Like tied up closely in a plastic bag to keep it from going completely dry. But all the same, we'll produce that and plop it down on a spare bit of blanket. Still wrapped up in the plastic. No clay staining. And we'll idly twist off maybe a little smaller than a fist-sized hunk of it and start kind of kneading and messing with it as she talks. There are a number of talons that I can teach, more that you can make on your own, even more that you can learn from other members of the Sept, who, like your den father, like the right master. And each talon will require different housing, a different spirit, but the rite is the same. You can bind a spirit that is willing, you can bind a spirit that is unwilling. I find the willing to be much easier. And so it is about making deals. And in this case, the chiminage that you offer is something generally small, but longer maintenance. The Gaia's breaths is done in exchange for making sure that the lakes on Sep stay clean. Making sure that I walk the beaches, pick up any garbage that the humans that visit this place leave behind. It is simple. It is a bit long. It could be considered tedious, but It is something easily done. And considering how many are generally bound, and how consistently I must be able to offer the chiminage, it works. You have to keep in mind when offering these chiminages that when you learn to make a Gaia's breath, you will make many, many of them. You can't have the cost build up. And
Yeah.
and for the sake of saving a bit on time, she will kind of begin teaching her the cursory, at least give her a cursory lesson in how the rite of binding is done, complete with producing various tools that she prefers to use, methods she prefers to use. Admittedly, the flavor can be tweaked, but we'll teach her the basics. All this with the expectation that she may have to do so several times over the next week because bless Helena's little heart.
Yeah. Yeah, about that.
Still, she'll lead with a cursory lesson of, we do this and then we do this, and then by the time we do this part, the spirit, meshes with the item and becomes a Talon.
She kind of, she follows through. Surprisingly keeping up, like pretty excited by doing all this. Like, actually, you can roll a perception empathy on this.
I will, because I can. And I'm a lazy ass, so I'm just, yes, thank you. That is the perfect title. I am at least moderately attentive to your emotional state. Go me.
Yes. So you could tell she's pretty excited, and by like how like she's following through, and you 10 points been around Helena enough. You know when she's thinking, kind of her facial expressions. It kind of seems like she's got some things in mind already.
And yeah, to fuel that fire a little bit, 10 Point will start pulling out a handful of different talons and spreading them out on the blanket. I don't have the description for an architorch. I'm going to assume it looks something like a flare almost. So she'll produce one of those and explain, the spirit that goes into it and the fact that when lit, it weakens the worm, not just a particular creature, but within a certain distance of the flare. Anything, caught within its light, she'll pull out. She'll set the Gaia's breath down, and then she will pull out two different kinds of arrow that are distinctive from her normal arrows. She'll pull out a bane arrow, for one, and then we'll pull out an arrow with what looks rather like a little weird clay arrowhead. Like, you have to marvel at it because that's obviously not going to ever break skin or do any real damage. It's just going to shatter. And we'll explain their purposes. The one with the clay head being essentially a long distance Gaia's breath, not as strong as a normal one, but able to hit an ally across the field. She'll produce a Nightshade Talon. And I don't have any green dye made, but she'll save that anyways for once you're a big kid. But yeah, she will pull out a handful of talons, explain their function, explain what the spirit is granting, and then explain the spirit that has been bound into it, and then probably flip them around this way and that to point out various features that make this particular talon appealing to this particular spirit, whether it's glyphs that are on them, whether it's a particular type of design, whether it's the overall craftsmanship of it being particularly smooth or textured in a particular way. But she will make a point of kind of imparting as much as she can about the item and how you make it appealing to a particular spirit.
She happily follows along again. You can see it even more as like talk about each specific one. She doesn't touch them. Like she won't touch them even if also just out of kind of either respect or just not sure what what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, she'll
But
make at least a cursory offer, but when she like reacts kind of like, "Oh no, I couldn't," she won't push it again.
and she, oh again, you can see it even clearer now that she like ideas are buzzing.
I mean, she seems markedly pleased as she's picking that up, and we'll be smiling. You will be able to craft those of your own. It's a little harder to contract a spirit for a new Talon than for something with which they're familiar, but it still shouldn't be but so difficult. And after the first, it tends to be fairly easy.
Yeah.
I have heard of rabbit granting greater dexterity, granting better luck. I have heard of things like reindeer granting greater hardiness, or earthen spirits granting hardiness. Wind spirits grant greater speed.
And what about Fox?
I have come to Fox myself before. I'm trying to remember what boon specifically I was asking. He can be appealed to for insight, for cleverness, for his ability to go unseen and sneak, for his quickness. He's an adept spirit. The last time I asked his aid, it was not in making a Talon, but instead in offering an overarching boon once to a group of Gru on a mission. So rather than binding him and giving a more vague chiminage that could be paid many times over, I asked him to do me this favor for this particular mission, and had Mariah pick up several live chickens to leave out for him.
Oh, so you asked for his blessing?
Yes. Spirits are capable of more than aiding just through talons or fetishes. You will find that we, or I at least, often, especially if I cannot go on a mission, will find the most appropriate spirit I can and appeal to them to aid the party.
Yeah. Just been thinking a lot.
Good.
Playing to my strengths,
Of course.
just in case if he ever comes back.
An eyebrow quirks?
She looks down.
Which he?
Desmond.
I wish I could have heard what he was saying last time.
Well, if I get things sorted, hopefully I'll have it so he never speaks to me like that again.
I should hope not. She kind of apologetically reaches out, like in a almost like nervous social grooming type thing, a little anxious that she couldn't be more help. Will like reach over and just kind of tuck her hair behind her ear.
Because I appreciate, you all looking out for me. I do. But I've got to stand on my own 2 feet as well.
You do.
And since I'm supposed to be some warrior, I mean, I've got to take at least one step towards that, right?
Well, we're all warriors in our own right. And while I am no Arun, I would have thought it had come down to it. But your strength relies on this. And she, taps her temple very lightly. A clever person does not issue a challenge. A clever person works the other around to where they feel the need to challenge. Because when you are the challenged, you can choose the nature of it. You can choose to play to their weaknesses and to your strengths. You can choose riddles. You can choose puzzles. You can choose any number of things.
Oh. I didn't know that.
She nods. It's a bit of a trick. Mariah, only so long back, after he had left his first pack and joined ours, was challenged by a member of his previous pack over his honor. And so, when he initially had planned for more of a mentally engaging challenge, he was told by his challenger that he wanted it to be combat, that he wanted to satisfy his honor. And that is simply not the nature of it. When you challenge, it is up to the person that you challenge to determine what they see fit. And so what Aiden did was quickly spoke, saying, "Very well, then trial by combat. The first to surrender wins." And she'll glance over to see if she's catching the trick to it.
She's listening, and she kind of smiles when he says that. When she says that.
She grins broadly. And of course, this very agitated, very confident Haroon accepted, didn't listen closely, and lost the challenge. Because of the moment they began, Aiden flung himself to the ground and surrendered. And he swaggered up, so confident, so sure that this is the way it would have ended. When Aiden popped to his feet and dusted himself off and declared himself the winner, he was shocked and angry. But it was a fine, fine choice of a Ragabash for a challenge.
That sounds like him.
It does. We are all Gaia's teeth and claws. And of course, if you challenge an Arun, if you challenge a Philodox, they will likely opt for combat. But if you are challenged, there's so many more options. Now, the things that make this more tricky. In theory, one higher than rank than you does not have to challenge. If I wanted you to do something, I would simply tell you to do it. And you would be expected to. And you could challenge my order. And depending on how important it was, I could either make it combat, something quick and on the spot. I could make it something Simple that gave you a chance of winning. Or I could make a point of playing to my strengths and to your weaknesses. Challenges also don't always have to be on the spot. When Desmond challenged Jason, Jason gave him a challenge of honor that would have lasted a week. He rescinded his challenge. So, well, you will sooner or later have to get more adept at combat. Sooner rather than later, I hope. So that if the worst happens, you can defend yourself. Don't think that it is the only way that you can deal with your setmates.
All right.
She grins, leaning back a bit. You could go so far as to set the challenge at a foot race. Whatever suited you. But in the case of Desmond, yes, it is better to learn to defend yourself, because I imagine he will simply apply blunt force to his perceived problem, as opposed to making a proper challenge.
Yeah. Which I assume. Which, kind of looks down at the tailings on the blanket. Playing to advantages.
You could make more offensive talents. You could contract a spirit of darkness. Activate the tail end to render your enemy blind. Things like that. Make it much harder for him to hit you. And unless he thinks to blatantly say no tail ends, you're within your rights to use them.
I was thinking of sticking something closer to family.
She grins. Closer to the family will be almost certainly easier.
Just had a bit of cunning. She smirks.
Never a bad thing.
But yeah, I'll keep trying all the stuff you showed me.
She'll nod and probably go so far as to scribble out basic instructions on a page on her notebook and rip it out and offer it over.
She takes it.
Just for when you practice, so you have something to refer back to ensure that your steps are right, that your words are right.
Thank you. For everything.
It tilts faintly. There's no need to thank me. You'll be a fine Theurge. And seeing you flourish and knowing that I have taught you will give me a great deal of pride and pleasure, all on its own.
It means a lot. It does, coming from, from someone like you.
No.
I was just always kind of a loser. So,
Kind of head tilts with that.
what?
She finally just kind of smirks and reaches over and ruffles her hair because it's bright red and it's there, and well, she's the babby, so she gets her hair ruffled. You have a long way to fall to be the places I've been. You'll be fine. And here, you'll flourish. I don't have much thought to what humankind thinks or what they use as labels. But here, you'll be sought after.
It's kind of funny.
Is it?
Yeah. I guess I've never felt more like I'm at home.
Good. It's important, feeling as though you belong. And you do. I have yet to find anyone who would say an ill word about you.
As long as I'm keeping in the good books, that's good, right?
Hmm. You've done well. And while I will not keep you from setting your own lines and doing what you need to do, I can assure you that if Desmond gets out of hand, there will be repercussions.
Oh, I know that. But as a very tribal, I guess, lifestyle, it looks better coming from, the person involved. If you know what I mean.
It will. It will mean more to him if you can make the stance on your own, particularly as he is Get, and they respect individual strength. But whatever he may say, it doesn't mean that they value their Theurges any less, or that they expect them to be as strong as their Aruns. Your strength doesn't have to come directly from your body. If you use a Talon, if you contract a spirit to fight alongside you, you are simply using your strengths. And if he tries to naysay that, well, I imagine there are people who would be very interested in his opinion. Not in the positive way.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Yeah. I'm sure you're perfectly capable of making your point, and I will let you do it.
She picks up the squircle, kind of fumbles with it a little bit, starts starts carrying on with whatever she was doing before.
And for what it's worth, 10 Point will periodically maybe lean in and help her catch where she's either missing bits of the weaving or what have you to help steady the process. She's not going to reach over and do it for her, and she's not going to nitpick, but she'll be giving helpful little bits of insight here and there. It'll probably eventually smush her bit of clay and plomp it back onto the large hunk that she carries around and drop all of that back into her bag again.
Oh, Oh,
Hmm?
that's a point. She turns around and her little bag that she's got, well, I say little, it's kind of like a letter bag. She kind of ruffles around in it for a little bit. Eventually, she pulls something out. The small little box, kind of like probably the size of a glasses case or something.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it looks very much like a glasses case.
Oh,
And she puts it down in front of 10 Point.
she'll
I
get
got
an
bored.
inquisitive glance.
I got bored, so I made a few.
She will wipe her hands off, probably on her skirt, because I mean her stuff's already kind of tatty, so it doesn't matter if it gets a little stained too. And we'll pick up this glasses case and investigate it thoroughly.
It's a daisy crown.
That gets a grin. Is it like one
Just
of the kid ones where it's like one bloom tied to one strand and are all the way around?
it's like double done, basically. So it's like two layers.
Nice.
She just kind of shrugs, like the face.
10 Point will be met with the obvious difficulty of, well, it's cute, and I would put it on my head, but I have antlers.
Oh,
So as such, she will in fact pull it out, and will kind of comically drape it very carefully. Will reach up and work it down over one antler so that it drapes around the front of her head, and then just kind of has a jaunty angle to it. Because getting it over both is just out of the question. And we'll make a bit of a show of putting it on just so and plucking it into place and look over with the raised chin like, how do I look, kind of thing.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
She is wearing a broad smile. I'm at a unique disadvantage.
I was like bored and made one for Jason, so I was like, why not?
Why not indeed?
I think he liked his.
Good. Hmm.
He he's good at what he does.
No?
Yeah,
How so?
he doesn't think it, but he's got a good head on his shoulders.
It's a shame he doesn't think it. He thinks most things. He does a lot of thinking. It helps him make educated decisions.
He does. It's what he's very good at.
Undeniably.
I guess I help in the best way a theurge can.
And how is that?
Steering him in the right direction.
Good.
I tried. I think he took it.
Sure he did. Wherever you go, I have the I have it on some measure of intuition that you'll be the heart of whatever pack you end up in. It puts you in a very good position to do just that.
He's one I'm going to be looking after all the time.
Sorry, say that again?
He's one I'm going to be looking after pretty much all the time.
Good. I imagine with luck, and if both of you accept the offers you've been given, you'll be in good stead to do it.
Kind of smiles brightly at the acceptance of this.
And she'll lean in and kind of mock seriously. I have it on very good information that the Seekers and the Urban Vigil are very closely aligned packs.
I would never have guessed.
Never ever, of course.
That's a point. Have you seen Colin recently?
Here and there. I do spend time almost daily at the RV. It's a good place to be out of sight and to not feel looked on. He doesn't mind if I have a smoke there and almost always pushes food at me. All in all, it's a pretty agreeable relationship. I think he likes the company.
Yeah. He's a good man.
He is. A better example of a Kagi than most I've seen on Sept.
Even if he is grumpy.
He is, but at the same time, he is also not overbearing.
She just kind of laughs at that.
And she pokes her tongue out. It's a unique Takagi indeed that does not immediately pull me aside and try to tell me that I am magical and wonderful and should shake off everything I've ever learned and known. I appreciate Colin for not feeling like he needs to do that.
Actions speak louder than words.
They do.
And he's very much more of an action kind of guy.
He certainly is.
She sits there and begins carrying on with the squircle. Slightly less of a, well, or depends. Might be more square than circle. Might be more circle than square at this point. Depends whichever 10-point thought it was at the first place.
Yeah, because let's be fair, I'm not sure she had the nerve to ask because that's like when a kid hands you a drawing and you're like, "Oh, it's beautiful. What is it?" Like it kind of takes some of the magic out of it. So it's probably getting a little more on the circle side than the square side at this point, but yeah, it's a gently curving square. Who knows? It's got a mind of its own.
It's a squircle. It will always be a squircle.
It will forever be a squircle. But she'll lean back again, probably half propped against the tree. And of all things, we'll probably end up producing our violin and just kind of, well, fiddling with it. Lol pun.
Heyo. And yeah, Helena will sit there and hum along.
And, she will, during one of her pauses, glance aside. Was there anything else that you could ask me? As a Therd, as a Fianna, as a Guru?
Yeah.
And what is that?
Do you still bump your head going into places?
She grins. Not really, no. I'm used to them. I've had them for a long time. Actually, I have more of a habit of ducking when they're gone, which I imagine looks kind of funny.
Gone? Do they like come off naturally?
They do once a year, but I have to saw them off frequently.
Does that hurt?
No, not when they're fully grown.
Oh,
And she reaches up and kind of taps at them because they are at this point in fully grown form. When they're just bone, bone doesn't have nerves, not this. I could saw them down most of the way, and do, so that I can leave Sept and the Tellurian without being a veil breach. When they grow and the velvet is on them, that does have nerves and carries blood to them, so they can grow. And thankfully, they very rarely need to be cut down while they're still regrowing. It heals over, of course, but it's not pleasant in
no.
that case.
I'd imagine so. I was just curious.
But no, for the most part, it's completely harmless. They take a day to grow back. And another day for the velvet to come off. But no, they feel nothing. She reaches up and, like, flicks one of them. If anything, it might make the bells jingle a little bit. And considering how frequently I have to keep the veil in mind, I make a lot of things out of antler.
Really?
She kind of blinks a time or two in surprise and goes, "Well, yes." And she immediately reaches into the swag and pulls out a number of, like, small pouchy style bags and spills out the contents. And there are, like, one of them is obviously just a giant bag of where antlers have been sawn down to discs or just various blank shapes. But there's a number of things that are like pendants and buttons and beads and just all manner of antler crafts that have been etched, and some of them have even gone through the whole scrimshaw process of being ink washed to pick out the lines. But yeah, there's
That's
a bunch of it.
that's weirdly awesome.
She grins and will in fact reach again into the bag and very carefully work out a fully grown pair from the last time she had to pop them off when she and Jason went to lunch with Desmond.
Oh,
And we'll set them off alongside of Helena, like over where they're not in the way of whatever she's weaving and all the various materials she has set out. But we'll just essentially just hand them over.
she kind of just looks at them, looks at 10 Point.
She just kind of gives a shrug.
Thank you.
It's another type of craft you can play with if you like.
It's just, you know, I, I, hmm, I don't even know what to say to that. It's like somebody handing over like their fingernails.
She admittedly gets a laugh out of that. It may seem strange, but at this point, I've twice now been able to give them over as bribes to other Theurges. So, it must be worth something. I couldn't tell you what.
Oh,
At this point, I have so many. Could make a number of ridiculous antler chandeliers like I've seen in the movies. Still have plenty left.
oh, thank you.
The worst comes to worst, you can always fob off the thick bits at the base. See if you can get Garm to make you something with an antler handle.
I don't even know what I'd use.
Knives are a good place to start, I find.
Knife?
Well, he is doing forging.
Oh. We'll see. Maybe.
We can always go to the training grounds at some point and let you work with a number of different training weapons. See if any of them suit you especially. And in the end, it's easy to forget that there are times that we will be put in a position where we have to fight, and there are too many people or too many cameras to take a more war-worthy form. A knife can save your life, even if you don't use it regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Again.
Of course. Don't think too much on it, though.
Well, I do, so. What? I care, alright?
You do. And caring is good. Just make sure you don't dwell too long on things that you can't change and that make you unhappy. You've got
To
a
be
spark to you,
honest,
and I'd hate to see it dulled.
I usually forget about them.
There's kind of a helpless shrug where, like, I shouldn't be happy about that, but you know what? Whatever works. Kind of,
Not purposely all the time, just kind of shrugs back like, meh.
I will just consider thinking too hard on it to be looking a gift horse in the mouth in that case.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
But keep thinking, keep practicing. Hopefully, about time that you are ready for your rite of passage, you'll have some thoughts in your head and we will, perhaps speak to a magpie. See if we can get you one of these. And she'll pat her satchel.
I've got a long way to go yet.
And
She
you're
just
wise enough to take
smiles.
the time you need, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I'm in no rush.
You'll be surprised how fast it goes once you get into the swing of this. The rites, the talons, the spirits. It'll go faster. Use the time.
I will. I will. She kind of picks up the antlers, puts them in her bag. Obviously, it not being like 10 points, they just kind of stick out.
Yeah, probably. It's a full-fledged, like, broad pair of adult antlers. They're,
Yeah, they
they're
stick
pretty
out.
big.
They stick out. They stick out massively then. And she just kind of puts the cover top over it and kind of clips it together. So these two huge antlers are sticking out the top of this bag.
That seems fine. It's totally fine.
It works, all right. She picks up the squircle again. Kind of looks at it. I don't think this is right.
A hopeless shrug? It's practice. Can it be wrong?
Yeah, you're right. She just happily just smiles and starts humming along to herself. She starts weaving back in and carries on. Just paying no mind to whatever she just said. Like, yeah.
Seems legit. Yeah. Unless you have more to do, 10 Point will continue like offering a bit of insight, maybe one or two little tips to her, and we'll go ahead and get herself up. Then she'll glance to the skyline. Morning soon. You want to meet me to play again?
Of course.
And she'll smile faintly. Then I will get about my business so that we can play. And after that, I think just maybe I should get sleep.
Yeah. You need sleep.
I do, it turns out. I don't do very well without it. Kind of rubs at the back of her head. I'm already seeing things again. I need the dreams to see them.
Huh.
And I'm going to quickly look and see what it was I was seeing again.
She just kind of shrugs. I haven't slept in 2 days.
She kind of shakes her head in the like, I don't even fathom how you do it.
Smiles brightly.
If only I could do the same. But I suppose in the end, like I said, the visions come when I sleep. So perhaps better that I sleep more than you. And she kind of reaches down again and futzes with her hair. 'Cause you little son of a gun, you.
Well, I get visions one day.
Perhaps. It depends in part on your ties to your ancestor spirits. Depends in part on the spirits that you yourself are tied to. It's very possible that as you grow, Fox will see fit to give you visions, at least in things that relate to him. But perhaps not. Every Theurge has a different way about them. And this is mine.
Yeah. Just don't want to be totally blindsided by that. Because I would freak out.
They're not always easy to tell apart from dreams. This last one, though.
Bad?
And she kind of frowns faintly. It had to do with that shadow stuff. And the veins in it, I think. I can at least know now for sure that there was human sacrifice involved, but not who, not where.
It's alright. It'll be fine. I got hope.
It will. And perhaps if I keep dreaming, I will see more. I'll speak to Dana before I sleep. And see if she'll grant me greater insight.
I'm sure she will. And she just smiles brightly.
And she'll offer a far more reserved, comparatively, smile and a nod. And I'll see you in. And she glanced up towards the skyline again. Perhaps an hour or two.
I'll be there.
And she'll give another idle nod and will finally kind of turn herself about. Consider, by glancing this way and that way, finally orient in a particular direction and go ahead and take herself off.
And I ain't got nothing more to do.
Yep, so I suppose we'll call it for now. We'll say thank you, player, for playing, and watchers for watching. We will see you next time on the Living World of Darkness. Rage Across Me.